male guilt and dating. For those of you who don't know me, which is probably most people, if you happen to come up, I'm Joseph, I'm the wing bro. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Joseph, I'm the wing bro. I teach men daytime cold approach, and on this channel I discuss all things cold approach and relationship oriented. Today I'm going to discuss, I'm shirtless as well in my hotel room here, training a guy tomorrow. I've been working this evening and I thought I can't be bothered to be flashy tonight. We'll just go shirtless and let's get on with some points. So this is going to be rugged and raw, like WWE. But yeah, male guilt and relationships. I think it's an important topic. Let's just get into it. Well, actually, first of all, why am I qualified to talk about this? Firstly, it's something that's affected me for a quarter of a century, guilt and relationships. I'm 39. I had my first girlfriend at 15. I lost my virginity at 15. So 25 years, basically, quarter of a century of women, relationships, sexuality, and experiences and seeing patterns and so on. And one of the big things I've seen in myself is guilt in relationships. And I think this is one that a lot of guys will be able to relate to. A lot of guys won't be able to relate to as well. I think it's quite a polarizing topic. So let's discuss it. I'm going to go into some depth. Actually, I will put my shirt on. I'm just thinking if I'm going to go into depth here, I don't want to get cold. Give me 1 second. I'll put you facing up the ceiling here. I've been walking around Manchester this afternoon and it's been quite sweaty. This is a bit of a sweaty shirt I've got on here. Just have a look at the lighting as well. Could we get it a bit softer? That was a bit severe, that, wasn't it? Yeah, I think this will do. Yeah, this is a little bit more relaxed. That's better. So let's talk about guilt and relationships. Male guilt and relationships. Well, first of all, let's just talk about symptoms. I know a lot of guys stay in relationships they don't want to be in because, oh my God. Okay, all of you are just absolute retards. I won't have any of this nonsense about, like, if you're spouting just retarded stuff on my channel, I will just literally get rid of you straight away. So I'm moving pretty much everyone, actually. Wow. What is wrong with you people? Hide user on this channel. Yeah, I'm the loser, mate. I'm the one who's going on people's lives spouting nonsense. Okay, so guys stay in relationships that they don't want to be in for months, weeks, years for sure in some cases. Guys actually escalate relationships into marriages that they don't want to be in. I know this because a friend of mine, he actually told me he got married twice, and he said, honestly, mate, both times I got married out of guilt. So yeah, it is something that guys do. I remember a friend of mine, he had a girlfriend who was basically just useless. She's from a different country. She's from Australia. They're living in the UK. She needs him for the visa, and she didn't have sex with the guy. She didn't work. She didn't cook. She basically did nothing. He was basically her parent. The only thing she was pretty fit. But he was like, he's a big sports guy. Like, he never struggled for sex at all, that guy. And he said he didn't want to leave because he didn't want to be the bad guy. And when he did start going out with a new girl, what's interesting is not only his girlfriend, but also his mom and his sister-in-law, as in off his brother's wife, almost ganged up on him. So we had this kind of shaming tactics used on him, which, it's like the guy's a little boy or something. It's fucking weird. I think there's a lot of family systems which are just completely fucked. Like, if you're over 18, basically your family's got really no part to play in your relationships, other than you consult with them if you want to. So many where, especially with men, it's fucking weird. And so you guys that guy felt guilt in advance of leaving. Paralyzing guilt. This is what I'm talking about. Paralyzing guilt. Guilt that stops you actually moving forward, stops you acting. And this guy felt guilt for leaving a girl who objectively brought nothing to the relationship and was he was basically being her carer. He felt guilt. And I know a lot of guys feel this. So is it socialized? Is it biological? I don't know. I'm really not sure, to be honest, because I know other guys who don't feel any guilt at all. They will just do what they want to do. And if they want to leave a woman they don't want to be with, they'll just leave her. They won't feel guilt. So I don't know. I don't know. Do we have an overactive conscience? Some guys. Does it go back to the past? And I'm going to come on to this in a moment. People can be considerate to a fault. And, I've never found there to be much advice in the manosphere about breakups that was actually effective. I've never found any advice that was actually good and helpful. I've seen things like, "Oh, leave her better than you found her." The fuck does that even mean? Have you ever known a woman be grateful and happy that I'm happy that we were together because he's made me so much better? No, that actually makes it worse. That makes it worse. It's such dumb advice. It actually makes it worse. If the relationship was shit, she might actually feel relief. But if she's got a lot out of it, she's going to feel more devastated. Yeah. Which in turn the guy knows that. The guy is sensitive enough to know that. It's going to impact on him even more. So that advice to me is I've always just thought that's just fucking stupid. Leave her better than you found her. It's dumb. It sounds good, but it's like so much advice in the manosphere. It's dumb and it doesn't help. I've never found any good advice on this, really, other than just, you basically just have to bite the bullet, which is what you've got to do. But yeah, guys are considerate to a fault, and this is something I've just been through over and over again, to the point it's the predominating pattern of my dating life is getting into, like, having my guard quite high up and then letting someone through a little bit and then getting into something with someone, and before I know it, I'm 6 months down the line, or I'm 4 months down the line, or 5 months, a year, and the girl's probably deeper in than me, and I'm thinking, I don't know if this is going to go. I don't know how far I want this to go. But by that point, then I start to feel guilt that I'm not as invested as the other person. And I know women get this as well, but women are socialized and possibly genetically just more, they don't have the resources to be selfless in a sense. So they're just selfish and kind of simple. They just usually leave. Some of them will have like guilt and stuff, sure, but most of them won't. Most of them won't. They'll justify stuff to themselves. Oh, I just felt, guys, we shoulder that burden more, in my opinion. Even though we're told like men are the selfish ones, it's not true at all. Everybody fucking knows it as well. So yeah, I've seen so many guys do this. Guilt. Is it even is it the main driving force for a lot of people's relationships? I don't know. Some guys won't even leave atrocious women because of guilt. And then sometimes guilt because of what they might do. You think, is this girl going to go and do something drastic? People can get into all sorts of things. Yeah, so where does this come from? Where does it come from? Is it biological? Is it sociological? Is it both? Or is there something even deeper? Because as I say, some guys don't feel it at all. Um, is it from a family system where people are, where basically children are, adults project some kind of a shame or guilt onto children because the child isn't meeting their needs in some way? As fucked up as that is what a lot of families are like. There's something called spousification as well of sons, where women treat their sons as spouses. And if you don't think that's real, you don't live in the real fucking world. Women will treat their dogs as spouses, right? That's another thing as well. Does that affect their ability to be decisive and to look out for their own interests as they get older? Um, Parental actual abuse, narcissistic parents as well, which is going to include a lot of shame-based parenting. All of these things can play in. Guys can feel an excess of guilt. Um, those are the pathological ones as well. Those are the pathological ones. And yeah, this I can't go into all of those ideas because they're different. They're different kind of rabbit holes. But um, all of those things, it all kind of comes down to, for the man, a process of self-differentiation, of actually growing as an individual person, understanding you're not actually responsible for everything in everybody else's life. Even the girl you're seeing, you're not actually responsible for her life. Now, if you take the step and get married and have a family and all that type of thing, that's different. You are taking on, you're agreeing to responsibilities. In that case, you're kind of signing up for it. I'm talking about dating here. Um, yeah, self-differentiation is something I'm looking at the moment. I think it's a very important concept. A lot of people in cold approach, in the male dating space, they're not self-differentiated enough. And this is something I can refer back to myself. I'm going, how much of these feelings are actually me, and how much of it is something else? It's in there, it was instilled in some way. Um, yeah, for me, it's fairly obvious, to be honest with you. So that's something I'm working on. Um, but the reason I'm commenting on is because I think a lot of guys experience this. So yeah, autonomy as well. What have we got saying here? Okay, so if you've got anything to contribute that's intelligent or interesting, I'm happy to hear comments, any experiences people have had about this male guilt and dating. Um, yeah, autonomy. I really do think there's absolutely a case for building an autonomous life for a year or two, and then just maybe dating casually, doing cold approach casually, or doing even cold approach intensely to build up your skills, get on dates, not but clearly not allowing yourself to get into anything for maybe a year whilst you begin the process of self-differentiation, because you don't want to get into another codependent thing where you feel responsible for the girl, she's depending on you for different things in excess of what would be normal. Um, yeah, so that's just all a big discussion of male guilt. I definitely don't have the answers on this one. It's something, as I say, I've been experiencing for a quarter of a century. It does make me consider, should we just be following the biblical teachings, just don't have sex, and then you won't feel any guilt. Don't go on any dates, and apart from someone you intend to marry. But then again, I don't think that's realistic either. So, and as I say, some guys don't experience any guilt of these types of things. Um, I wonder how much of it is healthy and how much of it is pathological. There's got to be a healthy amount of guilt, for like, yeah, but then how much of it goes into pathology? Like my friend, he escalated relationships into marriage through guilt. Fuck me. Um, is it that we see women as like almost like women and children, we put them in the same bracket, and we do want to protect them? And if you're leaving a woman, then she's going outside of your protection, and you feel guilty and responsible for those Just because a situation changes doesn't mean the dynamics in your own head are going to change. The synapses in your head, that mental model and map of the person and that relationship, that doesn't just disappear just because you say a relationship is over. So, yeah, what's the solution for all of this? Self-differentiation. I do think self-compassion and compassion for the other person as well. Both are important. And also thinking about what is the best way to approach these things. I use something called the lightning process by a guy called Phil Parker, which is very good for state management and the management of mental models as well. Are you modeling something incorrectly? And you basically self-coach and analyze through a very specific regime. This guy's called Phil Parker. Check his work out. He's very good. Yeah. So this brings me on to the next topic, which is, there's no resolution in that thing I've raised there. I'm just very interested to hear, genuinely interested to hear other people's experiences and comments. I know a lot of guys experience this, and I know a lot of guys don't. So I'm interested to hear both sides. Why do you experience it, and why do you not experience it if you don't experience it? Now, the next one I want to talk about is, cold approach as social practice, because I've just said there, should guys, let's say you've got a guilt complex in relationships and you want to spend some time building up your own sense of self. Who am I? What do I actually want? As well as what can I offer? What plan do I have for myself? And you might want to spend a year or two single to actually give yourself the right direction. But in that time, especially as a man, you can't really afford to get completely off. The market will just leave you behind. Yeah, it just will. So you can't afford to get off the wagon, so to speak. So a good middle ground is to take some time for yourself and then just do cold approach and just do cold approach, because that develops your cojones, that develops your male attractiveness, it develops your ability to go over, spark a romantic interaction apropos of nothing, because you're just doing it usually in the street. Even you just have conversations, maybe get some numbers, some Instagrams, whatever. Even just the stops, compliments, and just that visceral experience of doing that isn't definitely enough to keep your confidence increasing with the opposite sex as you still build some time for yourself. So, a friend of mine, I don't know if he's watching or not, but he's an actor, and he separated from his ex-girlfriend 6 or 7 months ago, and he's just started really focusing in on the cold approach the last 2-3 months, and it's working wonders for him. He's still building his confidence as well as developing himself, but he's not getting himself hooked into anything romantically. He's taking time for himself, and it's having a knock-on effect in the rest of his life as well. That's kind of something I've been doing this last close to last 12 months. I've not been as active as much dating and the closing and stuff. It's mostly actually been, for the most part, just doing sessions, going to different countries, getting numbers of girls in different countries, just actually practicing and getting ready to actually teach. The year before was when I was having all the fun, really. So yeah, it comes in fits and starts. But cold approach as a means of radical male self-development and a radical self-confidence. I was at a family function on a few days ago, about 5-6 days ago. It's massive function actually, and loads of people coming in from everywhere. And I always used to find those things just intolerable. A lot of small talk, just lots of weird, awkward things as well. People you haven't seen for a while, you don't know what to say to them. There's always a few hot girls, like hot women there, and you kind of like, who can I approach? What do I even do with this? You know what I mean? Because she's like my cousin's friend or something, so there's all those weird things. And I just found myself like very peaceful in this family gathering, just like very at ease with myself and able to interact really well with. There's probably no one else would have noticed too much difference, but I noticed a difference internally. Um, so that'd just be one example of cold approach having a massive benefit. I remember there's times where I was being a little bit dynamic, like in a certain part of the event, just because I wanted to be, And then other times they all started talking politics and stuff, and I'm not going to say anything because it was low level discussion. I'm just like, I'm not going to come in and waste my breath here, and I can just sit back and be passive and just chill. And I don't feel the need to. Before, I would have felt the need to say something to correct people on something stupid that they said. Um, but I can just be passive, just chill. And I think some of that social self building, some of it is coming through cold approach. Some of it. Let's just have a look here. I'm going to continue on, but I've got a great comment here, I think. So, MT's language guide. Hey, I'm thinking about going completely celibate after a failed marriage. Is it the right thing to do? I feel dating may create problems for my daughter. Any guidance or feedback? That is such a good question, mate. So I'd probably, obviously, like all these things, you want to know a little bit more about the situation. So if there's any other details you can add, age of the daughter, what happened in the end of the marriage, what your living situation is, all that's interesting and relevant, and potentially very relevant. So if you want to add that, I'd love to hear more. My instinct, my gut reaction to that, as soon as I read it, is I say, honestly, I think it's a reasonable call. I think it's a reasonable call as long as you combine it with continuing to be active in your approach, in your interactions with women. The reason I say that is because if you go completely celibate for like 2 years and you then when you want to get back into dating, you've not spoken so much as spoken to a woman, you're going to find it problematic. So I would just, depends on what type of person you are. If you're very sociable anyway, it might not be necessary. But I know for me, like, that wouldn't be a great shout. I've done things like that before where I totally switched off from women because I just felt I literally didn't have any, as ridiculous as it sounds, I've had periods in my career where I literally didn't feel like I could justify any time spent on anything else. And afterwards, I came out of those periods very, very withdrawn and like struggling to get my interaction going again. And so I would recommend continuing to interact, but maybe holding yourself back sexually. I'll be honest as well. This is what prostitutes are for. This is what prostitutes are for. Might be controversial, someone talking about dating and a cold approach and all this type of thing. But let's say a case of someone who doesn't want to go and get wrecked again emotionally for a period of time, let's say a year. Go and do your approach, go and interact with women, and if you need to once every few months go and have a shag, that's what they're there for. That's what they're there for. Yeah, I mean, you could go down the casual route. I think a lot of guys though struggle to go and have casual sex, to be honest. This is the problem, is because you meet someone who's actually fucking hell, she's hot, and you sleep with her, and fucking hell, before you know it, the hormones are raging again. You might be into something again before you've had chance to actually heal yourself and get yourself on an even keel. So yeah, celibacy, good. I can pay for play once. I wouldn't, obviously, you don't want that to become a weekly thing, but probably not even more than monthly. But that's one. I've actually thought about that for guys I've seen go through divorces in their older years, and I thought, if you really need to, dude, I'd that's probably the route I'd go down. But I certainly want to keep interacting with women, and you want to keep approaching and maybe going on some dates and stuff as well. And you can go on dates with women, 1 or 2 dates, and then just be like, look, I'm putting things on a back burner. You don't have to explain to them, but you can if you're interested in seeing them in the future. You can. D, be real. Yeah, hopefully hopefully that was a real, you know. I don't think I can be any more real than that. Yeah, or you can go overseas and, you know, like where there's like almost like no consequences for a couple of weeks or something, and just maybe have a couple of holiday shags or something. This can always be a good angle to get out of your system. But yeah, I think you got to take your daughter into account when it comes to whatever you're doing personally in future years, and prioritize that obviously, and do what you got to do. Do what you got to do, and get yourself on an even keel as number one priority. You don't want to jump out the frying pan into the fire. Get yourself on an even keel. This is why cold approach is so good. Social practice. It's a crazy thing because, like, let me just illustrate this. So when I first started daytime approach, I'd done loads of nighttime because I was a club promoter, and I'd indexed a lot of my life after that incredible work period that I discussed, which was from about 18 to 25. No, realistically 16 to 25. No, actually, honestly, realistically 12 to 25. If I'm actually being realistic, 12 years old. Yeah, to 25. Yeah, I did have a girlfriend when I was a teenager and stuff, but people who I'm like friends with say to me now they've never seen someone more high performing at like 15 or like 19 or like very early 20s. I was fucking like Terminator mode. um so I had all of this, and then I had some health problems in my mid 20s, and I came out of that going, fuck me, I miss my teenage years, I miss my early 20s. Fuck me, I'm 27 now, and I've just had 2 years of health problems. So I'm going to go on, enjoy my life. I'm going to actually build a big social life, keep working, but I'm going to reduce my intensity by like 40%, 50%, and I can just coast and then just focus on the other stuff, which is what I did. And yeah, so indexed on my I indexed on my personal life, and that gave me a lot of experience between 27 and 37, and then traveling around the world as well during that time. And then at 37 I came into daytime approach. I first kind of discovered it while I was away in Latin America. I saw guys doing it. I started to do it a little bit myself. As I got back into Europe, I realized it was a bit different. It wasn't as fluid and flirty. You needed to actually have some technique out here in Europe. And so I got trained by a guy who was very exceptionally good at cold approach, and he showed his material on the internet. And is also a former performing magician as well, so had lots of literal tricks up his sleeve. So I got trained with him, and then I've just been doing cold approach literally every single week for 2 years, and many times, several times a week, just developing. And what I found was, yeah, I found it was a great tool for going into relationships. The crazy thing is, a girl I was seeing, it was about 3 or 4 months after getting trained. I was in a different country, and she said, "Yo, yeah, you know, you were quite sweet. You were kind of nervous when you spoke to me," which I think I was, to be fair. Because again, I'm solo in a very very foreign country, um, and yeah, and she said this to me like 4 or 5 months after we'd kind of been going back and forth and started to see each other a little bit. And I didn't say at the time. I was like, but in my head, I'm thinking, man, you should see how much I've improved. You should see me now. Um, because between that, let's say 3 months in, and then 7 or 8 months in, I'd got a lot better. I'd got a lot more competent. And but obviously I didn't say that to the girl, because for them, you know, it's just a kind of magic thing that this guy did. So yeah, and my only point there is, it does over time. That the skill, it kind of like, it grows exponentially over time. Maybe not exponentially, but it grows significantly over time. Progress is not linear. You hit that curve, and then you start to see some radical progress. So cold approach is a social sport, as a confidence building sport. I think I've never felt more formidable than I do now, because I've got this angle and I've got it in many different countries as well. I've done approach, got numbers, dates, all the rest of it in, I don't know, 6, 7 different countries, some of them quite difficult, Turkey and Bosnia being two of them. So it's had a knock-on effect to the rest of my life. So yeah, so social cold approach is a social sport. I would highly advocate it, guys. This is something I index on hard on this channel. There's other things as well, and I'm actually going to come on to this now. Your approach ecosystem, your dating ecosystem. So 30 minutes in, I'm not going to stop the pace. I'm going to slow the pace. Let's get straight in now to approach ecosystem. What is your approach ecosystem? So I'm in Manchester this evening, this afternoon. I've had like work meetings going on in the day. I'm training somebody tomorrow and in cold approach. But in between my meetings, I was going out and I was just doing like 30-minute little buzz sessions in the streets, just going over, stopping girls, paying compliments, and just getting that feel good factor from actually, going over to girls. There's a point with me nowadays, it's almost like for the last 6 or 7 months, I've been almost doing it with a level of professional diligence. That's the best way for me to put it. And like, for example, this evening, like the approach ecosystem was, I'm just in Manchester, I'm just in the streets. There is really no ecosystem. I'm just going out and just doing it. Yeah. And it's just a little bit of a gunslinging mission. It's a bit of fun. An ecosystem is more like, let's say if I lived here and I was going out on a weekly basis and I was getting dates more frequently because I was living here. I've had some dates here, but it's like because I'm only coming over once every 3 weeks or something, it's not that frequent. That would then, and then let's say there was a club I went to regularly, and let's say I flirted with some of the girls there as well. That would then be an approach ecosystem. There would be a real ecosystem and maybe a gym as well. I'm not a fan of approaching in the gym, but it could be somewhere else like that. Maybe dancing, like salsa, bachata, a little bit of flirtation there, bring some of the dates in there as well, whatever I'm doing. That then would be an ecosystem. So when I'm back in my hometown, my home city, or if I'm living overseas, I'll create an ecosystem where it's like, okay, this is the area where I'm meeting girls. I bring them to this cafe. We go there to the dates, and I've got this kind of ecosystem. So before that, I would be meeting girls in my club or on my club nights, or I'll be meeting them in dancing, salsa, kizomba. That was my ecosystem there. And I think that's very important. I don't think just relying on the streets, even though I think the streets are like, that's where you go out and you do your most extreme approaches to build massive social muscles. So you've got social guns. The streets are where you build yourself, but actually you're most leveraged in other places. Most leverage in other places. So you can get girls in the streets. You should be getting girls in the streets, but build your ecosystem as well, and leverage yourself in other areas as well. I remember when I came back to Manchester like about a year, just over a year ago. No, actually, exactly a year ago. I've been in Latin America and I've been doing daytime approach relentlessly. Good experiences out there. And I came back and I just like wrecked Manchester in the afternoon, to be honest. It sounds arrogant, but really it's just how it is. I had my Puma tracksuit on, wrecked Manchester in the afternoon, went out that night, and went to a Latin bar, and it was full of Colombian girls, Dominican girls, and again just ran the whole night on my own. That's probably the most I've ever ran an entire night just on my own, like a one-man army on my own, just like going over to girls, taking them out dancing while flirting with them, go into the friends. Oh, there's a whole group of them. Chat to all of them. Bring the fittest one out. That's the most I've ever run a night, or for years, possibly ever. And that was just because after coming back from Latin America, I felt I had the inside line on all these girls. Yeah, so I had like that was weird. I was on a massive high. That was a cool thing. Anyway, so that was the ecosystem. Anything else? Yeah, so there I was highly leveraged there. That's the last thing I wanted to say on that particular night because I speak Spanish fluently. I just flown in from Latin America. I knew the dance. I'm basically a fucking unicorn, which is a decent looking English guy, professional, who's fucking good at bachata and speaks Spanish. It's like, right, form an orderly line, girls, because that's literally their dream. It's like all the great elements of Latino guys with the professional and uh, depth of character of a European guy. It's not to say that you don't have it, but if you combine the two, it's a very appealing package. So yeah, so that was like probably the most I've ever cleaned up on a night. It was fucking ridiculous, and that was so much easier. My point here is that was so much easier to get all these girls' numbers, so much easier, and they were so fit as well than it would have been just going up to them in the street because I had much more social leverage in that environment. Plus, I had all my confidence from approach as well. So, yeah, this stuff is like if you're wanting to take it to a high level, then this is how it's done. You're treating it like in this way. It's not with seriousness. It's not serious. It's fun, but it's just proactive. Um, okay, I'm gonna have to just get a few people hidden. I think. Yeah, we can hide you as well. Strange messages again. Yeah, no, I'm not into it. Um, yeah, so that's your approach ecosystem. Work on that. I'm very heavy into daytime approach at the moment and less heavy into my approach ecosystem, primarily because the last 6 months I've been gearing up for training people. So I didn't actually even care too much of that. I can get stuff, but I'm not really bothered. Um, Actually, what I'm wanting is just to make sure all the angles in the streets, I'm familiar with everything. Um, so next up here, uh, yeah, after approach ecosystem, I've got written down costs of doing business. Costs of doing business. I went through a phase about 3 or 4 years ago where I would look at a girl, I'd look how hot she was, I'd just look at her and I'd do a cost benefit analysis, literally like the Terminator in my head. And I'd be looking at her and I'd go, no, she looks like too much work. Or actually, I look at her and go, no, she looks like good value. I'm not looking for a freebie. I'm looking for value. I'm looking for a good return on my investment of time and energy. And that would be the calculation I would do. That would be the main calculation I would do with girls. Because before that, it was just kind of like, how fit is she? Am I attracted to her? Is there something there? But over time, I started to, about, yeah, probably 5, 6 years ago, I started to look, maybe after one particular experience, which was not a good one, I started to go, okay, what's the downside here? Let me look at the potential downside here first. Because we know what the upside is. Good sex, she's hot. Let's be real, you do feel, especially at the start when it first happens, you do feel more the man when you've got a really hot girl with you or a girl, people looking at it going, Tristan, you know, because of my tastes and stuff, like, it's not that people would think I couldn't get a hot girl, because I think I do look like a guy who could. It's more just like, what the fuck? Like, the unusual looking compared to me, these girls. Uh, fucking avatar girls. And yeah, so there's a bit of an ego thing there. That's the upside. The sex is the upside. The relationship is obviously the upside as well. But the potential downside with a bad one is fucking huge. It's fucking huge. And this is where I'm talking about cost of doing business, defensive strategies. It's a guy I was speaking to the other week who basically said he will never get with. He's not getting with. Well, he's very reluctant to get with an English woman again after he had a fake charge leveled against him. And it's like it was completely fucking bogus. Yeah, that's obviously terrifying, and stressful and extremely traumatizing. I've not had that, but I've had like I've had a stalker, like a serious long term stalker, who stalked my business and did like fucked up things like that. Contacted people that I knew and stuff, and I had to speak to the police. This is an unpleasant experience, believe me. It's a very unpleasant experience. So downsides, cost of doing business. Yeah, that's the extreme. Those are extreme downsides, by the way. And there are very obvious ways to avoid those things. Like I personally should have vetted that girl more. I knew there was something weird. I should have done more vetting, but I wasn't abundant enough at the time, so I didn't vet I did vet a little bit, but it was on looks basically. Um, and then yeah, there are the other guy as well. He could have vetted that as well better. So these are the extreme ends, the extreme damage that can come from letting the wrong person into your life. You don't want that, right? Now, what is an acceptable cost of doing business? An acceptable cost is, you paying for dates. It's an economic cost. That's absolutely fine. You're spending time with someone, which is time you can't spend on your business or with your family. That's fine. Acceptable costs. Anything else? Costs of doing business wise. Yeah, those are probably time and money, basically. That's what you've got. Time, money, and energy. We don't have anything else. So that's all fine. But yeah, I'd say there was a good few years, maybe even I still do it now. No, because now I will still approach and I'll make the calculation later. But yeah, it is like, how much am I going to have to go out of my way, and how worth my while is it going to be? And what you actually want is, you don't have to go out of your way that much, and you get massive, ridiculously outsized return because you just get on with this person. They're a fantastic person, and they love fucking you, and you love fucking them. That's like an amazing return. Yeah, that's where you are considering a relationship. But even if you're not, it's still good experience. Um, so yeah, cost of doing business there. Was there anything else? The last thing I'll say on cost of doing business, another reason daytime approach is good is because it makes acquiring a woman real, in the sense of swiping on an app and going for a date. It's not hard enough. It's not hard enough to make you almost value what you've got. Whereas when you've been out on the street like a fucking wolf, yeah, and you've been getting no's and rejections and, you know, almost, and oh, like you got an amber light, and then it was like, oh fuck, and it went to a red. You had a green light, and then fucking hell, you hit the brakes with a red, or this happened, that happened, this happened. You've been doing all of that. You've been putting the time in, the reps in. You do value what you've got at home when you get something at home. You do value that great cosmic connection, that magical moment with a woman. It is magical because you actually know, in all reality, we talk about abundance, yeah, but in all reality, those moments don't come around every day. Yeah, they don't. And there's a lot of girls you can have base level of attraction to, but beyond that, especially if you're a man of depth, I'm going to come on to this in a moment, you're not actually going to have much connection beyond a basic physical interest in a huge portion of the female population. And that is actually based on the IQ curves, which I'm going to come to this in a moment. But before I get onto that, yeah, so those are costs of doing business, basically. And that's a good topic. Any other costs? Yeah, how far do you want to invest your future as well with that person? What potential avenues might you be blocking off? If you go all in with someone, are you blocking off another potential avenue? Let's just say in your professional life, with travel or whatever it is, your passion, are you blocking something else off? And many guys do. Yeah. There's a guy said, was a comedian said, like, yeah, the best painter in the world, we don't even know who the fuck he is, because his girlfriend, I don't know, wanted to go to Ibiza or something like that. I don't know, like, you know, he basically sacrifices talent for a relationship. And that's the guy's joke. He obviously told it in a funny way, but are you blocking off avenues? And that's a real thing as well. You have a family, you got children walking around. Guess what, mate? You're not gonna fucking go and be a painter. Yeah, it's not gonna happen unless you literally leave your children, which is what Shakespeare did, what Gogol did. Yeah, they made it, but most of them probably fucking don't. So yeah, cost of doing business. Uh, Paul, mate, how you doing? Good to see you, mate. Good to see you. Um, let's get straight on to. I'm gonna answer your question, Black Yami. Interesting name. A weird question. Would you do compatibility test to find your perfect match? I've heard about these things. Someone said to me, that's the kind of thing you do, Joseph. I can imagine you doing that, where people do these screenings and then they find the perfect match for the other person. I suppose, in a sense, cold approach is doing that very thing. When you go out and you're just explosively and unapologetically yourself, and you're going in and you're speaking to new women, like 5, 10 women every single time you go out, you are doing that compatibility test in an organic way. So you're doing the same thing in the field while still developing yourself, developing your confidence, developing your social skills. So I think I'm doing that anyway. In terms of doing it for a test, yeah, why not? I wouldn't. Why not? I'd do it. Yeah, why not? If it actually was going to yield something, then I'd be curious to know. But the types of girls that I would go for, are they doing those tests? Because I'm not going. I'm 39, but I'm not going for 39-year-old women. So I have my bracket that I'm interested in, which is probably, I'd say probably. I do find now I'm actually finding some women in their mid-30s hot, which was not the case a couple of years ago. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, maybe mid-30s women are getting fitter or something. I don't know. But yeah, if I think a lot of these things that are set up, like Match.com and stuff, it's like 48-year-old women. Like, I'm not interested, love. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Relationships and intelligence. Relationships. Oh, we've got Jazz in here as well. Um, okay, Mahid Nadeem. Don't you think modern dating, men being judged for not seeking traditional relationships, contribute to the issue? Yeah, there's definitely judgment there, mate. There's definitely judgment there. And this is something, and this is why, like, I mean, women are conditioned into it, absolutely. Men are conditioned into it. Oh, you're a bastard. You're a playboy. You're a player. You're a bastard. You're a man whore. You're basically labeled as bad. You're basically labeled as bad. You're labeled as bad. If you want to be single but still have sex with multiple women, you are labeled as actually bad. Mostly by women, but also sometimes by men as well. Yeah. Yeah. So, especially if you're doing it organically, people can do it online. Or people doing it like fucking addicts online, bro. Absolute sex addicts online. Because it's all behind closed doors. No one has a fucking clue what's going on. You're not getting labeled. But if you're doing it out in front of everybody, you're doing it in the club, you're taking the girls out on the dates, you bring them to the cafe, then you bring the next week and you bring a new girl in. Depends on not just a cafe I used to go to, an Italian owner, and he loved it. He loved it. And I wasn't even, he saw me, there's always levels to all this kind of thing, right? It's all relative. He saw me as like some kind of a playboy, right? Because I would bring in maybe every 2, 3, maybe every 2 weeks at a maximum, I might bring in a new girl, and I'd have like, let's say 5 or 6 on a rotation over like a 6 month period. So that's not actually that much. But these would be girls like I had something going on with them. It wasn't just a date. And he saw me as like an absolute playboy. He's like, oh, every time because I'd seen him sometimes in a club as well, because he went to the same club as me. Even though he's a bit older, he knew the owner of the club, and I'd see him in there. Like, oh, we see you with a new bird every time. And it's just so to him, my lifestyle probably was a bit, I don't know, like he thought I was a bit of a playboy. But in my group, I was one of the slowest guys in my group. There was guys who were going through 5 and 6 a week in my group. And so this is why I never say anything. I never put myself on some kind of I'm the master playboy. It's all relative. And there's even guys I know who are going through 2 and 3 in a day. Believe it or not, I've got a friend who's a rock star. So it's all relative, man, and it's all relative. But yeah, you most of the time you're not going to be appreciated And yeah, there's especially in American culture, to be honest, like in a lot of fucking stuff, they try and shame men into it's just absolute bullshit. It's garbage. Uh, we've got people talking about shampoo and stuff. Okay, fine. Josh, is that Josh from Entourage? If it is, hello, Josh. Um, is there anything else I could say? Men being judged for not. So Mohid, you've got an Arabic looking name, so you may be Muslim, and I think that's a major issue for Muslim guys. It's a major issue for Muslim guys. Is if they're just like, yeah, look, I don't want to have a fucking family. I don't want to be 25 having a family. You know, it's a major issue for them because yes, there are actually a lot of benefits in that group of like there's a whole culture, right? But you got to marry into it. You got to marry into it, and you got to be one of the boys that way. At least there is an incentive to marry. That's a whole different discussion. But yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on those guys, a lot. And you got to be strong. You got to not yield to it. But yeah, it can weigh you down. It can weigh you down. So I'm going to get on to some of the later topics on this live. We've been going for 51 minutes. I'm going to continue to keep a pace and keep just giving you as much value and as much of my experience and also my processing as well as possible, because these things, I'm 39, so these things I've been dating since I was probably first approaches I was 12. When I approached girls at 12, and then first dates, maybe 14, 15. I remember going to the cinema with the girls, lost my virginity at 15. So 25 years. There's a lot of processing going on. I've had years where I literally couldn't get laid for like a couple of years, or maybe like 18 months or something. I've had years where I was hitting it fairly hard, not as hard as some of these crazy, completely out of control playboys, but fairly hard. And then I've had years where I'd had a girlfriend, I'd years where I'd maybe have a few girlfriends at the same time. And then I'd have like years where I'll be doing, yeah, cold approach, whatever, just all these different experiences. And it's in recent years I'm processing it all. So this is going to be useful for you. Hopefully it's going to help you to you can't like pigeon you can't live off the back of another man's experience, but it can help you to it can help you to understand where you're at. It definitely can. And the last thing I want to talk about today is relationships and intelligence. Relationships and intelligence. So let's just think about this on a very basic level, right? A very basic level. So if you are, let's say you're looking for a girl who is a top, let's say top 10% looks. Let's say that. Probably most guys who are actively dating would say if they've got themselves into that top 10%, which when you think about it, it's not actually that hard. You can do that actually pretty much without even having much in the way of attractive genetics. You can probably get into the top 10% just by being in shape, and by being presentable. You can get yourself into the top 10%, I would say. Where if you lined up 100 guys, you'd probably be in the top 10. If you just took a random sample, not like 100 guys, like, I don't know, from the Premier League or something, or whatever, fucking wherever it would be from, 100 random sample guys your age, you could be in the top 10 or top 20, whatever. So your top 10, top 20%, you're going to want a girl who's the same. Now, if you're, let's say, top 10% physically, you're looking for top 10% physically, you're top 10% mentally, and you're looking for top 10% mentally as well. Off the bat, that's two axes there. That's two axes. It's one axis on looks, and it's another on mind, intellect. That's a 1 in 10 shot. The other's a 1 in 10 shot. And if you want both of them, it's going to be 1 in 10 times 1 in 10, which is 1 in 100. It's 1 in 100. So that girl who is hot and she's smart, she's top 10% hot and top 10% smart, she's actually a 1 in 100, as are you. If you've got the look going on and you've also got some brains as well, you're 1 in 100. You're 1 in 100. So that's why this is where this is where actually the kind of rubber meets the road in terms of intelligence. It's statistically more rare to find a girl who is both attractive and intelligent. That's just statistically more rare. You can find 1 in 10 girls who are intelligent, yeah, but only 1 in 10 of that 1 in 10 are also going to be top 10% attractiveness. So it's going to be 1 in 100. And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you start to realize actually it's not as abundant as it is abundant in a sense, but it's not as abundant as you kind of think in a sense. Like, yes, there's hot girls everywhere. I can go out any day, I can speak to hot girls. But quickly, you realize quickly, if you're smart and a girl's like, if you're top 10% and a girl's bottom 30%, you basically you can have banter with them and stuff like that. And you can have maybe a male emotional thing with them, but depends on the country and stuff. They could just be too dumb to even want to even want to spend any time with, to even have a conversation with. This is actually one of the reasons why I have long conversations on my approaches now, if I get into them, because I want to know, is this girl, I actually want to spend time with a girl who is at least fairly smart, like top 30% smart. I don't want to I can't put myself through an idiot. I can't do it. I've done it in the past. It's too painful. I can't do it. Um, yeah, and you can ask as well all the different types of intelligence and, female intelligence. I do actually think they have almost different forms of intelligence to us. But I want to see something there. I want to see something there, that female way. Um, so I'm quite exacting on that personally because I don't have that much time. I don't have that much time. So when I do go, I'd rather spend a few weeks off dating than date someone just on a who's just I can't stand being actually listening to. I can't even do it, to be honest. I can't do it anymore. So yeah, uh, that's a numerical thing. And if you want top 1% looks and top 1% brain, you know what that is? That is 1 in 10,000. That's a 1 in 10,000 girl. You can still find them. You can still find them. But bear in mind, she's 1 in 10,000. And if you're top 1% brains and your top 1% looks like Dolph Lundgren, then you're also 1 in 10,000. We're just being statistical here. Obviously, we all like with approach, it is much more about social skills, it is much more about intangibles. But I'm just discussing a simple statistical fact that to find a girl who is a combination of brains and beauty is it's essentially it's more than doubly as rare. It's actually really 10x as rare if we look on the stats. Now the good thing is, which means I go out and I put 200 approaches in on hot girls. There's gonna be 20 of those who are also top 10% brains as well. So I'm going to have great selection of, and I don't need top 1% or anything like that. Yeah, there'll be two who are top 1%. I don't really care about that. I think I've been with at least one woman who would be top 1% in terms of intellect. She was a professor, and that may not mean much, but she was genuinely somewhat thought provoking to speak to. Um, yeah, like it wasn't just banter, male, female, just chat and sexuality. We actually got in some like heavy conversations that I wouldn't normally get into with a date. And she actually pushed me mentally in a sense of like she said she brought concepts to mind that I'd not even thought of. Like she was more advanced in some ways. And then in other ways I was more advanced than her because she's like obviously she's purely academics. That woman, she was purely academics, and I have academics, but also like quite a long time now in just in like running my own business and travel and stuff like that. So I had some different angles to her. So yeah, I'd say I've definitely dated someone who was top 1% for sure. But then there's other women who are like very there's this like this womanly intelligence that they have, which is hard to quantify. And then it's like there's another woman I dated who, it's funny, I dated this professor at the same time as dating this single mom, right? But I was dating both of them or very similar time. I think I'd started dating the single mom a bit afterwards. And the professor said to one of her friends, like, how is Joseph dating her? Like, what the fuck? Like, she's like trash, basically, because they're both from Latin America, so there's a bit of bitchiness between them. And I just remember being like, I really don't agree because I have this woman, she's because she had a child young, it's the only time I've seriously dated a single mom. And I said like, I'm never gonna marry you because I don't want to marry a single mom. But anything else we can do. Um, and this woman had so much womanly intelligence about her. Now, what's interesting is her son. He's now older. So I dated her like 6, 7 years ago. He's now older. He's in his teens and doing exams and that type of things. Her son is extremely smart, like basically gifted. And he's not had any special type of, education or anything like that. He's just genuinely naturally gifted. So this woman who didn't have the academics, but she had some kind of womanly intelligence, she's given birth to an extremely gifted academically boy. So it's just interesting how it all fucking works, man. Um, so yeah, relationships and intelligence. Um, yeah, relationships. It's not just intelligence though, is it's outlook as well. It's world outlook as well. Because you could be someone who's technically intelligent, but if you're not living in the real world, um, or if you are actually, if you're someone who lives in a fucking fantasy, stupid world of delusions, you need to probably be with someone who lives in the same world with you. You need to be with someone else who lives in that same fantasy world. Or if you're a very down to earth, realistic type, who doesn't mean you're always right about everything, but you're trying to be down to earth and grounded. You need a woman who's the same. It's not even just intellect. It's your actual outlook. Um, so yeah, and this is the value of putting a lot of volume in. So I'd say today I went out. I don't know how many. I probably did about 6 or 7, just warm ups, just fun, mainly just compliments. And I saw there was one girl who she she lit up quite a bit. She stood out a bit just from the spark we had, but it wasn't. It didn't last very long, to be fair. That interaction. Um, but yeah, that's just a nothing day. And out of all the approaches I've done since I've got back to the UK, the one girl I've been on a date with, she's she's from Africa. I'm not going to say where in Africa, but she's from Africa. Which is I find those girls are like socially conservative, but also like they're used to very confident men as well. There's a sexuality and sensuality there, but they're fundamentally quite socially conservative, which is pretty much like me. That's pretty much my, so it suits me, right? That type of personality. And like we had pretty much a good connection on the approach. We end up going out on a date. It was like, yeah, it was great times. Um, but that's off the back of I don't know how many approaches I've done in the UK, probably a couple hundred, no, probably 100 or so since I got back. I don't know. And that's yielded one pristine date with everything, every single box ticked with that particular girl. To the point I was almost like, fucking hell, do I even call, what do I do with this girl afterwards? Because it's kind of like, game, you got to recognize her game. I don't really want to waste this girl's time. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. So, um, but yeah, the point on that, I'm trying not to ramble, but the point on that was all of that volume simply just allowed me statistically to get through to, this is the top 10%. It's definitely the top 10%. Looks definitely top 10% brains. Also cool, like there's a kind of interesting cultural fit. We're not from the same culture at all, but like I know what her mentality is. It's pretty similar to mine. She liked the bold approach as well because she's actually used to guys. She's used to guys, very confident men in Africa. She finds it obviously it's different here, you know, like the African guy is obviously very confident. So yeah, so she liked the bold approach. Um, but yeah, the point is the volume got me that girl, basically. That's the benefit of volume. Um, so we've just done an hour there. We've hit multiple topics. We've hit an important topic of male guilt and dating. We've hit, what else have we hit? Let me just look back over the notes I made. Self-differentiation. We've hit cold approach as a social sport and its confidence builder. We've hit the approach ecosystem. And then we've also hit their cost of doing business and then relationship um, and intelligence. The last thing I'll say on intelligence, because there's guys who think, oh, I'm an intelligent guy. I can't. I mean, that's why I can't do cold approach. That's why I've got anxiety. No, I am afraid it's not. Neuroses, being neurotic, and being intelligent are not the same thing. Are not the same thing. Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist, um, yeah, nuclear physicist. He was notoriously like a party guy, complete womanizer. Feynman. Einstein was a womanizer. Yeah, people don't know this. Einstein was a big womanizer after he discovered general relativity and E equals MC squared and all that in when he was 26, and that all spearheaded him to fame. He was a young genius, and then his output slowed, which is fair enough when you've probably generated the most significant equation of the entire century. That's fair enough, which they then went on to use and make a nuclear bomb. But anyway, he was a notorious womanizer after he after that like massive intellectual exploit. He was a professor, obviously. He was still a great, you know, genius or very brilliant professor, but he was a massive womanizer. I mean, the list could go on and on and on. There's so many literal geniuses. I'm not even talking about someone who's just smart, like an actual literal or like genius who changed the world. Like incredible intellect, and a lot of them are just absolute players or just like really fun-loving. You know, they can switch off and they can go and be a fun-loving guy as well. So don't use your intelligence as a reason to not to kind of like stick in. Just because you're stuck in your head basically doesn't mean you're smart. And if you are smart, it's also not a reason to be stuck in your head. It's really not. Like so yeah, being intelligent is not an excuse to be sort of like, oh, I'm just too intelligent to do this. No, you fucking not. You're not too intelligent to shag. Yeah, you're not. So I think that's an important thing. I think it does need to be said as well. I think people can definitely delude themselves. All these guys, like my friend who's in it, like he's an engineer, and he's like he works on high performance boats, and he's like engineered his entire life as well, and he's like one of the most socially crazy guys you've ever seen. And I know loads of people like this. Doctors who like did the most drugs I've ever seen were complete animals. Business like business owners like to an unbelievable level. Like business guys who got, I think one guy I met, he's this is actually almost the norm. Guys who are on that super high level, like you know, founders of massive companies, they're absolute demons. Some of these guys, right? So and they're like business geniuses. So yeah, there's no excuse. Being smart is not an excuse. You don't get to be an intellectual. You don't get to intellectualize your way out of being a man. Okay, I'll finish on that. You don't need to. You don't get to intellectualize your way out of being a man. As one of the old Greek major playwrights, he originated. I think it was like tragedy or something. All he had on his tombstone was which battles he fought in. Because and he literally, I think he was like the original writer of tragedy. He's like the most famous Greek writer ever. I think this guy wrote in the Aeneid. And it was like, yeah, he didn't even write, he didn't, on his tombstone, he didn't even mention his intellectual achievements because it was more, he thought it was more important, his achievement as a man in battle. Okay. Obviously, we're just talking about cold approach. But yeah, I always remembered that story. Some of these, like, it sounds like I've got all these references, but this is decades of reading, and I make these mental notes that these stories that I read, and they just stick in there. And that's one of them. I was sort of like, wow, he wrote all of this, and on his gravestone he fought in these battles. That's pretty fucking cool. So yeah, you don't get to intellectualize your way out of being a man. You don't get to intellectualize your way out of approach, out of dating, out of shagging. Yeah, okay. So drop that one and use it to your advantage. Use those synapses to your advantage. Right, boys, we'll leave things there for this evening. Hopefully, it's been useful. What else? Oh, let me just finish on my summer offer for guys who are looking to take the next step in their personal lives and basically looking to develop a level of personal sovereignty, level up their confidence, 5x minimum, 10x. Some guys it's like 100x. Level up your sex life, level up your personal life, level up everything, and you want to do it through the medium of cold approach. You want to go and run the gauntlet of cold approach because you're that crazy, and you want someone by your side to make your life easier, to make your learning curve fucking 1,000x faster, if not 1,000,000x faster. You want someone who's seasoned, who's done this in God knows how many countries, who's approached in places like some places I approached in Turkey. I can't even mention where it was on this live. But yeah, I've done some hard territories, so I know what's going on. And I'm also realistic as well. I'm not some kind of fucking freak genius who just like super, just came out of the womb doing cold approach. Far from it. All of this stuff has been learned. So my offer is a 3-day coaching program with a 90-day support. I've been taking guys through this in recent months. It's been going actually really well. I've got a video coming out next next week, maybe even on the weekend, where I discuss one particular guy's results who just absolutely knocked out of the park, completely changed his entire life in a week. So it's been going really well, and this program has been really effective. So if you are interested in that, calendly.com/wingbro, calendly.com/wingbro. Book a call basically if you've decided you want to come and you want to do cold approach. Victor, calendly.com. Can I type in here? I don't know if I can. Calendly.com/wingbro. The link is in the description. I can't obviously give out my number on a live, mate. But yeah, if you're based in the UK, Victor, yeah, don't know where you're from, mate, but with that name, it could be London or it could be Lagos. But yeah, this is the program. It's a great program, to be honest with you. So yeah, if you're interested, you can book a call with me. The next calls I've got available are on Sunday, and yeah, basically I just take you through the options for the program. Realistically, doing this alone is extremely difficult. Yeah, and I had to sign up for training when I was coming off 10 years of approach and been a club promoter and lots of business experience as well, traveling around the world, lived in more than a dozen different cities and countries and stuff, and I still had to go and get trained. I just think doing it alone is fucking, basically, you'll never hit the heights, and it'll be very unpleasant to even hit the lows is going to be unpleasant. Whereas you can actually get the wing bro alongside you, you can hit the heights, and it's going to be fun. So that's what this is all about, having fun along the way. So we'll leave things there. Peace, love. This is Josefsky. Take it easy, and I will catch you boys on the next one.